Why do we suffer even when we have it all? You did everything right. You worked hard, built a stable life, and achieved success. Maybe you even found love. But one night, as you sit in the quiet of your beautiful home, a strange thought creeps in. Why don't I feel as happy as I should? Maybe you tell yourself, I just need a new goal, a bigger house, a better job, a vacation, a new relationship. But deep down, you know the truth. You felt this before. The moment you achieve something, the satisfaction fades, and you find yourself chasing the next thing. Why does this keep happening? This isn't just a modern problem. Throughout history, some of the most successful, wealthy, and admired people have admitted feeling the same way. Jim Carrey once said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. Why do we keep believing that just a little more success, money, or love will finally make us happy, only to find that the emptiness returns? Over 2,500 years ago, a man who would later be known as the Buddha asked the same question. But unlike most, he did not distract himself with more pleasure or power. He did not accept dissatisfaction as a normal part of life. Instead, he dared to ask something that no one else around him would. What if everything I've been told about happiness is wrong? From the moment he was born, Prince Siddhartha Gautama was given everything that a person could desire. His father, King Suddhodana, ensured that his son would never know pain or discomfort. Every luxury was at his fingertips: beautiful palaces, the finest clothes, the most exquisite foods, and endless entertainment. His life was designed to be one of constant pleasure, free from any form of suffering. But despite the perfection of his world, something inside him remained unsettled. It wasn't an obvious sadness, but rather a quiet feeling that something was missing, an absence of something deeper. His life was filled with distractions, yet the more he looked around, the more he sensed that none of it was truly lasting. At first, he tried to silence this feeling. After all, wasn't he living the ideal life? Yet, the thought kept returning, whispering to him in the quiet moments between celebrations. Is this all there is? Then, one day, Siddhartha left the palace walls. What he saw outside would change his life and the course of human history forever. The Buddha's Journey: Why a Prince Gave Up Everything for the Truth. Siddhartha Gautama had everything a person could desire: wealth, status, power, and comfort. Yet, even within his golden palace, something felt incomplete. The thought had been haunting him for years, creeping in during quiet moments, whispering doubts between celebrations. He had everything the world had to offer, yet a question he could not ignore remained. Is this all there is? Most people, when faced with this unease, push it away. They distract themselves with new goals, new luxuries, new pleasures. Siddhartha tried to do the same. But no matter how much he surrounded himself with beauty and entertainment, the feeling did not go away. He needed to understand why. One day, in his late 20s, he convinced his charioteer to take him beyond the palace walls. For the first time, he stepped outside his carefully curated world, and what he saw changed. Everything. On his first trip, he encountered an old man, bent over with age, his once strong body now fragile. It was a sight he had never seen before. He turned to his charioteer and asked, "What happened to this man?" "He has grown old, my prince. This is the fate of all living beings." Siddhartha had never considered that youth was temporary, that even the strongest body would one day weaken. On his next trip outside, he saw a sick man, his body twisted in pain. Again, he asked, "What is wrong with him?" "He is ill, my prince. Sickness comes to everyone." It was the first time he realized that health was not permanent. Even the strongest person could be reduced to suffering in an instant. On the third journey, he saw a funeral procession, people mourning as a lifeless body was carried away. He turned to his charioteer once more. "And this is death, my prince. No one escapes it." Something inside him broke. Everything he had ever known was an illusion. The youth in his palace, the beauty, the celebrations, they were not real, not in the way he once thought. Everything would change. Everyone he loved would grow old, become sick, and die, including himself. His final trip outside the palace was different. Among the suffering, he saw something he had never expected: a wandering monk walking barefoot, with nothing but a simple robe and a begging bowl. Yet, despite having no riches, no comforts, the monk looked peaceful. "Who is he?" Siddhartha asked. "He is a seeker," the charioteer replied. "He has renounced the world in search of truth." The monk had no possessions, no palace, no power. Yet he was free. Siddhartha had everything, yet he felt trapped. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his palace. His wife, Princess Yasodhara, and his newborn son, Rahula, slept peacefully beside him. He loved them both, but he knew that no amount of love could protect them from suffering. No matter how much wealth or power he had, he could not change the reality he had now seen. The thought was unbearable. He realized that he could not live in illusion any longer. He had been given everything that the world had to offer, and yet it had not freed him. It had only blinded him from the truth. If youth fades, if health fails, if death comes for everyone, then what is the purpose of life? There was only one path forward. At midnight, as the palace slept, Siddhartha made his choice. He took one last look at his family, knowing he might never see them again. Then, in silence, he left. He walked away from the life he had always known, not in despair, but in pursuit of truth. He abandoned his royal robes and exchanged them for the simple cloth of a wanderer. He cut off his long hair, the symbol of his princely status. He took nothing with him: no wealth, no protection, no title. He stepped into the unknown, no longer a prince, but a seeker. The middle way, the secret to balance in a stressed-out world. Siddhartha Gautama had walked away from everything: his wealth, his family, his title, believing that somewhere beyond the palace walls, the truth was waiting for him. But truth was not so easily grasped. He had seen that indulgence and luxury led only to emptiness, so he sought wisdom in its opposite: complete self-denial. The great ascetics of his time taught that the body was a trap, a prison that bound the soul to suffering. If pleasure led to attachment, then pain must lead to liberation. And so, Siddhartha embraced their path with unwavering dedication. He meditated for days without moving, forcing his body into stillness. He ate only a single grain of rice or a drop of water, allowing himself to waste away. He deprived himself of sleep, let the sun burn his skin, and let the cold seep into his bones. At first, he felt a sense of control, of progress. But as the months turned into years, something terrifying began to happen. His body was failing. His breath was shallow, his vision blurred. His ribs jutted out from his skin like the bars of a prison. He had become nothing but a living skeleton. He had chased the illusion of happiness as a prince, and now he was chasing the illusion of enlightenment as an ascetic. Both paths, indulgence and deprivation, had led him to the same emptiness. One day, as he tried to cross the Naranjana River, his body gave out. His legs collapsed beneath him, and he fell into the water. The current dragged him under, his lungs burned, his vision darkened. For a brief moment, he thought, "This is how it ends." But as he clung to a tree root and pulled himself back to shore, something shifted inside him. This was not enlightenment. This was destruction. He had chased pleasure in the palace, and it had led him nowhere. Now, he had chased suffering in the forest, and it had led him here, to the edge of death, but no closer to truth. As he lay on the riverbank, too weak to stand, a memory surfaced. A moment from childhood, long before palaces or poverty, before teachings or doctrines. He had been a boy, sitting beneath a rose apple tree, watching the earth being plowed. The world had been quiet, his mind had been still, and for a brief moment, he had felt a peace that had no cause and no condition. A peace that came not from indulgence. A peace that came not from suffering. A peace that simply was. The answer struck him. Truth was not in extremes. It was in balance. Just then, a young village girl, Sujata, approached with a bowl of rice milk. Siddhartha had not eaten in days. He stared at the bowl, hesitating. If he accepted it, did it mean he had failed? That he was weak? But then another thought arose. If a lute string is too tight, it will snap. If it is too loose, it will not play. Only with the right tension can it create music. He took the bowl. As the first drop of food touched his lips, something shifted. His mind cleared. His body strengthened. For the first time in 6 years, he felt awake. His companions, the other ascetics, watched in disgust. They believed he had abandoned the path, that he had failed. They turned away from him, calling him a traitor to the cause. But Siddhartha knew they were wrong. He had not failed. He had found the truth they were still blind to. Enlightenment was not found in suffering or indulgence. It was found in understanding, the middle way. With this realization, he gathered his strength, walked toward the Bodhi tree, and prepared to sit in meditation one last time. This time, he knew he would not rise until he found the answer. Breaking the illusion, why everything you believe might be a lie. Siddhartha Gautama walked toward the Bodhi tree with a quiet, unshakable resolve. He had spent 6 years chasing truth, first through pleasure, then through suffering, only to realize that both were illusions. The answers he sought could not be found in the world outside. If truth existed, it had to be found within. He sat beneath the tree, crossed his legs, and made a vow. He would not rise until he had uncovered the root of suffering, the cause of human restlessness, and the path to true liberation. The sun dipped below the horizon, shadows stretched across the land, and a deep silence settled over the forest. Night fell, and the world around him faded into darkness. At first, his mind resisted. Thoughts surged like waves in a storm, trying to pull him back into the world of illusion. Images flooded his consciousness, his past life in the palace, the warmth of his wife, Yasodhara, the tiny hands of his son Rahula reaching for him. A life he had abandoned, a life that still called to him. The pull of attachment was strong, but he did not react. He did not push the thoughts away or cling to them. He simply observed. Then came the deeper illusions, the illusion of identity. He saw how, for his entire life, he had been shaped by labels: prince, husband, seeker, ascetic. But what were these except constructs of the mind? He saw how people build their entire existence upon titles, roles, and possessions, desperately trying to define themselves. But beneath it all, what were they? Who were they really? He saw how suffering was not caused by the world itself, but by the mind's endless grasping for pleasure, for permanence, for control. Everything people held on to was impermanent, yet they suffered because they refused to accept this truth. They chased happiness in things that would eventually fade, then mourned their loss as if it were unexpected. Then the visions shifted. He saw life and death stretched out before him, not as a single lifetime, but as an endless cycle. Birth, death, rebirth, again and again, like a wheel turning endlessly. He saw that beings were not trapped by fate or destiny. They were trapped by their own cravings, their own refusal to let go. Every attachment, every desire, every clinging thought was a chain binding them to suffering. Then, as the final veil lifted, he saw the greatest illusion of all, the illusion of self. The belief in a separate I, the ego that fears loss, desires control, and clings to identity. It had never been real. It was a construct, a trick of the mind. The self was not a fixed entity, but a flowing process, constantly changing, never permanent. The moment he saw through it, everything changed. It was as if a weight that had been pressing on him for lifetimes had suddenly lifted. The last star of the night disappeared from the sky. He opened his eyes, but the world he saw was not the same. Everything shimmered with clarity. The trees, the wind, the sky. It was all the same as before, yet completely different. He had not become something new. He had simply awakened to what had always been there. He was no longer Prince Siddhartha. He was no longer a seeker. He was awake. He had become the Buddha. Vipassana, the simple meditation that rewires your brain. The Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree and saw the truth with a clarity that shattered every illusion he had ever known. He had spent years searching, through wealth, through suffering, through philosophy. But in the end, the answer had been simple: awareness. The suffering of human life did not come from the world itself. It came from the mind's endless grasping. People chased pleasure, ran from pain, clung to identities, and lived as though they could hold on to anything forever. But nothing lasts. Not youth, not love, not even life itself. This was the root of suffering, attachment to what is always changing. But how does a person, lost in distractions, caught in desires and fears, awaken from this illusion? The answer lay in Vipassana, the meditation that had led the Buddha to enlightenment. Unlike mystical practices or religious rituals, Vipassana required no belief, no gods, no dogma. It was the simplest practice in the world: to sit, to breathe, and to observe reality exactly as it is. For centuries, meditation had been seen as a tool for achieving concentration or spiritual visions. But what the Buddha discovered was something far deeper. Meditation was not about escaping the mind. It was about understanding it. He saw that the mind was like a restless monkey, constantly jumping between thoughts, emotions, and cravings. It chased after pleasure, ran from discomfort, and fought against silence. But no matter how much people tried to control their experiences, suffering always returned. Vipassana is the antidote to this cycle. The practice is deceptively simple. Sit, breathe, observe. Feel the breath entering and leaving your nose. Notice the subtle sensations in your body: warmth, tingling, pressure. Watch how thoughts rise and fall, like waves in the ocean. Do not resist them. Do not chase them. Just observe. At first, the mind fights back. It wants to move, to fidget, to think. It wants stimulation, entertainment, distraction. But the more one watches, the more they begin to see a fundamental truth. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are simply the awareness that witnesses them. And with this, something remarkable happens. Suffering begins to lose its power. Modern neuroscience is only now beginning to understand what the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago. Research shows that meditation literally rewires the brain. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for stress and fear, begins to shrink. The prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thought and emotional regulation, grows stronger. Longtime meditators show lower levels of anxiety, depression, and impulsiveness, as well as greater resilience, focus, and inner peace. But Vipassana is not just about stress reduction. It is a path to ultimate freedom. The more one observes without attachment, the more they begin to see the impermanence of all things. The highs and lows of life, the joy and the sorrow, come and go like passing clouds. And in that realization, suffering dissolves. The Buddha's insight was not mystical. It was not a belief system. It was simply the deepest understanding of human nature ever realized: that freedom does not come from changing the world, but from changing how you see it. And it begins with something as simple as a single breath. Compassion and wisdom, the hidden keys to success and happiness. The Buddha's awakening did not lead him to retreat from the world. It led him back into it. He had discovered the deepest truth about suffering and liberation, but he did not keep it for himself. Instead, he spent the next 45 years walking from village to village, teaching anyone who would listen. Kings and beggars, warriors and monks, merchants and farmers, all came to hear him, because what he taught was universal. At the heart of his message were two principles: compassion and wisdom. These were not just abstract virtues. They were the foundation of a fulfilled, meaningful, and successful life. For centuries, people have chased after success, wealth, power, achievement, believing that these things will bring happiness. But time and again, we see people who have everything and still feel empty. Why? Because success without wisdom leads to restlessness, and success without compassion leads to isolation. Compassion is often misunderstood. People see it as weakness, as something soft. But true compassion is strength. It is the ability to see another's suffering and respond with kindness, rather than indifference or judgment. It is what makes people trust you, what creates deep, unshakable relationships. Science confirms this. Studies show that people who cultivate compassion live longer, have lower stress levels, and build stronger social bonds. The Buddha saw that most suffering comes from separation. People feel alone, disconnected, divided from others. But when one truly understands reality, they see that no one exists in isolation. Everything is interconnected. The more one helps others, the more they help themselves. The more one gives, the more they receive, not in a transactional way, but in a deeper, more meaningful sense. Wisdom, on the other hand, is clarity, the ability to see things as they truly are, rather than how our desires or fears distort them. It is what allows a person to make the right decisions, to navigate life with confidence, to act not out of impulse, but out of understanding. The Buddha taught that wisdom does not come from books or theories. It comes from direct experience, from observing life without attachment. The balance of these two, compassion and wisdom, is what makes a person truly successful. A person with wisdom but no compassion becomes cold and distant. A person with compassion but no wisdom may be kind but naive. But when the two are combined, they create something powerful. A person who sees clearly and acts with kindness. A person others trust, follow, and admire. The Buddha's life itself was a testament to this. He was not just a teacher, but a leader, a guide, and a force of transformation. His presence alone inspired change, not because he commanded it, but because he embodied both wisdom and compassion in perfect harmony. This balance is the key not just to spiritual enlightenment, but to happiness, success, and a life free of regret. The world often teaches us to chase achievement, to outcompete, to win at any cost. But in the end, the people who are truly happy, who leave a lasting impact, who are remembered with love, are not just the most intelligent or powerful. They are the ones who balance success with kindness, ambition with understanding, discipline with generosity. And so, the question is not just, how successful do you want to be? It is also, what kind of person do you want to be when you get there? Be your own light. The Buddha's most powerful lesson. As the Buddha approached the end of his life, his disciples gathered around him, their faces shadowed with sorrow. For decades, they had followed him, listening to his wisdom, seeking his guidance. But now, their beloved teacher, the one who had illuminated the path to liberation, was about to leave them. A deep fear stirred within them. What will happen to us without him? Who will guide us? How will we know the truth? The Buddha, seeing their unease, spoke his final words, "Be a light unto yourself." It was his most profound lesson, a simple yet shattering truth. In that moment, he was telling them, do not depend on me. Do not depend on anyone else to show you the way. The truth is not in a teacher, not in a sacred text, not in blind faith. The truth is within you. For centuries, humanity has looked outward for guidance, placing its faith in external authorities, leaders, scriptures, traditions, believing that wisdom must be received from another. But the Buddha's final message was a direct challenge to this mindset. He was telling his followers that no one can walk the path for them. No teacher, no priest, no philosophy could replace direct experience. This was a radical idea, one that set Buddhism apart from many other traditions. The Buddha never claimed to be a god, a savior, or a divine messenger. He did not seek to be worshipped. He was a guide, nothing more. And now, at the moment of his departure, he was urging his followers to let go of dependence and realize that they already possessed everything they needed for awakening. Do not believe something simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions simply because they have been handed down. Do not believe in teachers simply because they hold authority. Do not even believe in my words blindly. Test them. See if they lead to wisdom, to clarity, to the end of suffering. If they do, follow them. If they do not, abandon them. In these words lay the essence of true wisdom. Wisdom is not found in belief. It is found in direct experience. Truth is not something given. It is something realized. And yet, most people live as seekers, wandering from teacher to teacher, book to book, idea to idea, hoping that someone else will hand them the answers. They seek certainty, something to hold on to. But the Buddha's message was different. He was telling us that truth cannot be borrowed. It cannot be given. It must be seen with one's own eyes. To truly understand, one must turn inward, observe, question, investigate. Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you suffer? Why do you seek? What is it that you are truly looking for? This is where true wisdom begins, not in accumulating knowledge, not in following traditions, but in directly seeing reality as it is. This is what it means to be your own light, to no longer depend on secondhand knowledge, to no longer follow blindly, to no longer seek answers in the external world. Instead, you become the light itself. You illuminate your own mind. You cut through illusion not with faith, but with clarity. And this, the Buddha taught, is the highest freedom. It is not about worship. It is not about belief. It is about seeing. He was not leaving them. He was setting them free. The path was never outside of them. It was always within. And now, it was time for them to walk it. How to apply Buddhist wisdom in everyday life. Buddhist wisdom is not just for monks in robes or those who retreat into the mountains to meditate. It was meant for people living in the real world, people with jobs, families, responsibilities, and challenges. The Buddha's insights were never meant to be locked away in temples or books. They were meant to be lived. And yet, modern life feels far from peaceful. Stress, anxiety, deadlines, conflicts, and endless distractions make it seem impossible to apply ancient wisdom in a world driven by urgency. But the truth is, this is exactly where Buddhist teachings become the most powerful, right in the middle of our everyday struggles. How do we bring this wisdom into our daily lives? How do we handle stress, difficult people, or personal failures without losing our inner peace? It all begins with awareness. Most suffering in daily life doesn't come from external events. It comes from how we react to them. Someone says something rude, and we instantly feel anger rise. An unexpected bill arrives, and anxiety takes over. A mistake at work makes us feel like failures. We live on autopilot, reacting to everything without realizing we have another option. But Buddhist wisdom teaches one of the most life-changing insights. Between every experience and your reaction, there is a space. And in that space, you have a choice. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late, and someone cuts you off. Your instinct is to get angry. Maybe you yell, maybe you curse under your breath. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if you simply noticed your frustration without acting on it? What if you let it pass, like a cloud drifting across the sky? This is what the Buddha meant by freedom. Not the ability to control the outside world, but the ability to not be controlled by your own mind. Buddhism also teaches impermanence, the idea that nothing in life stays the same. We suffer because we resist this truth. We want relationships, success, happiness, even youth, to last forever. And when they change or slip away, we feel pain. But when we truly understand impermanence, we stop clinging. Instead of fearing loss, we appreciate what we have while it's here. Instead of obsessing over the future, we learn to be present. Relationships become deeper because we stop taking people for granted. We enjoy small moments more because we know they won't last forever, and that's what makes them precious. This also applies to work and ambition. The modern world teaches us to chase success relentlessly, tying our self-worth to promotions, achievements, and recognition. But Buddhist wisdom teaches non-attachment. This doesn't mean we stop striving. It means we stop suffering over results we can't control. A project might fail. A goal might not be reached. A job might be lost. But instead of falling into despair, we move forward. We work hard, but we don't attach our happiness to a specific outcome. Success becomes a journey, not a measure of self-worth. And perhaps the most powerful lesson Buddhist wisdom offers for daily life is compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. We live in a world obsessed with productivity and perfection. People are hard on themselves, criticizing every mistake, feeling like they are never enough. But the Buddha taught that self-compassion is not weakness. It is the foundation of true strength. You will make mistakes. You will have moments of anger, fear, and doubt. The path is not about eliminating these emotions. It is about seeing them clearly, understanding them, and letting them go. Every moment in life presents an opportunity to apply this wisdom. The Buddha didn't ask people to renounce the world. He asked them to see it clearly. And when we do, life itself becomes the path. The first step to enlightenment. Start your journey today. Enlightenment is often misunderstood. People imagine it as an escape, something that happens after years of meditation, a mystical state where suffering disappears and life becomes effortless. But the truth is far simpler, yet far more profound. The Buddha didn't teach enlightenment as a place to reach. He taught it as a way of seeing, a shift in perception that allows you to experience life without illusion, without grasping, without fear. Most of us live in a dream, caught in endless thoughts, attachments, and distractions. We chase happiness and success, relationships, or material things, believing that once we get there, we will finally be at peace. But there never comes. The mind keeps moving the goalpost. More achievements, more desires, more expectations. But what if peace was never somewhere else? What if awakening wasn't about changing your life, but about changing how you see it? Spiritual growth is not about becoming someone else. It's about seeing reality as it truly is, moment by moment. It's not about escaping suffering. It's about understanding it so deeply that it no longer controls you. It's not about waiting for a perfect moment. It's about realizing that this moment is already complete. If you're constantly chasing peace in the future, how will you ever find it now? If you need conditions to be perfect before you're happy, when will that moment arrive? The path to enlightenment doesn't begin with external change. It begins with awareness. You don't need to renounce the world. You don't need to sit in meditation for hours. You don't need to memorize Buddhist philosophy. You only need to start paying attention. Try this now. Pause and take a deep breath. Feel it fully. Observe your thoughts. Are they racing? Are they anxious? Just notice them without judgment. Look around. Really look. Notice the details, the way light falls on objects, the sounds around you, the sensation of your body. Be present. Whatever moment you are in, just fully experience it without needing to change it. This is awareness. This is mindfulness. This is the first step. The Buddha never asked people to believe in his words blindly. He asked them to see for themselves. You don't have to take anything on faith. You don't have to wait for a better time. You don't have to be perfect. Enlightenment begins the moment you wake up to your own experience. Not tomorrow, not in another lifetime. Now. And the only question left is, are you ready to take the first step? If this message resonates with you, take action now. Subscribe to this channel for more insights on bringing mindfulness into your daily life. Like this video if you found something meaningful here, and share it with someone who might need this message today. The journey begins now.